artículos sobre la cultura estadounidense en las últimas 2 ediciones de la Enciclopedia Británica. Asimismo, escribe ensayos extensos sobre grandes pensadores en The NewYorker. Tiene habilidad presentando a estas personas y sus filosofías de vida, transmitir emociones detrás de las ideas, así como sentimientos que evocan en nosotros la relevancia de la vida actual. Es autor de París a la Luna, A través de la puerta de los niños, Ángeles y Edades, un libro corto sobre Darwin, Lincoln y la vida moderna. ¿Alguien quiere abrir la entrevista?
Hi, I am May from the Jewish Mexican Press, and I wanted to ask you what it is like to be a Jew and a columnist at the age of Trump, in the age of Trump.
Yeah, what is it like to be a Jew and a columnist in the age of Trump? To be honest with you, I have been a strong opponent of Trump, not that he noticed, or anyone else, but I think truthfully that Jews are always aware of the possibilities of persecution and exclusion, and it's part of our history. But at this moment, I worry less about Jews in America than I worry about Muslims, I worry about Mexicans, I worry about other minority groups who seem to me to be more probable victims of bigotry than the Jews are. Someone once said that anti-Semitism is a religion and bigotry is a recreation. So I think that the religion of anti-Semitism is always there, but right now I feel less frightened as a Jewish American than I do as an American.
And you wrote how to explain the victory of Trump to our children.
Well, that's what I tried to do in my talk today. I wrote about that. Yes, I wrote about that. And what I said was that the only way to comfort them is to remind them that no matter what happens in our political life, our common life remains strong, that we build consolation from building community. And by that sounds empty, but I mean by that, we talk to each other, we dine with each other, we realize that we're not alone, that many people share our emotions and many people share our feelings. And I think that that's one of the ways that we help our children. The other thing I would say is what I was trying to say inadequately in my talk here today at the City of Ideas, that the values of liberal pluralism are always under assault from the values of identity politics. The values of openness are always under assault from the values of tribalism. And that's an eternal struggle. It never stops. It never stops. It always goes on. And that our delusion is to imagine that it can ever be over with. That was the great delusion of the fall of the Iron Curtain, that meant, oh, now we'll have a liberal, pluralist, tolerant millennium. That never will take place. And that this is one of the lessons that we have to learn again and again and again.
What is your perspective about Mexico and Trump?
Well, I'm innocent. I'm so ignorant because this is my first time here, and I don't speak Spanish, to my shame. So I know nothing that I can say. I will say that I do think that it's astounding that bigotry of such a simple-minded kind, of prejudices of such shallowness could be perpetuated about a country which I know nothing about except to see that it's immensely varied, intellectual, and cosmopolitan. That pains me, but it does not surprise me.
What do you think your field is art somehow, and journalism? To what extent do you believe that the battlefield in the issue of Trump is in the field of economic model? I mean, we tend to see the politician, but hardly do we see the economical interests that he represents. And that's been the trend in media in general terms. We are forgetting the power that's triggering this situation, which is economic power, in an economic model. We tend to see politicians as the face, as the phenomenon, not really the cause, the face.
Let me answer your question in two levels, if I might, which is probably two more than I can masterfully. But I think that if what we say is the causes of Trumpism are chiefly economic, that may well be true. One of the things, however, that's striking about authoritarian politicians of any kind is that they tend to be economically empirical. They have a bit of free market, a bit of socialism, a bit of kleptocracy is the one thing that they have. So I think it's perfectly possible to imagine that the next 4 years in the United States will be economically prosperous and still be cruel for other people. I don't think those two things are incompatible. I do think, as I said though, if I'm asked that identity politics, if you look at what happened this year in the United States, that the politics of insecurity were more powerful than the politics of inequality. That people feeling that their identity was under threat was more explosive than people feeling that they didn't have a fair share of prosperity. I know there's a debate about that, and that debate will go on. And many of us would like to believe that inequality is more powerful than identity, because that we can fix. That we can fix. We can say, well, let's make a more equal society. Whereas if people are acting out of their deep ethnic identity, that's much harder for us to fix. But in all honesty, I think that issues of ethnic identity were more powerful than issues of economic inequality.
Okay. Two questions. One, first, the people that is against Trump is saying that the problem is his speech of hate. But in the United States, there have been a polarization of the society, and you see the same hate from the anti-Trump people. What do you think about that? And the other, trying to understand the twisted mind of Trump. There's a statistic report from the Immigration Department of the US that 1/3 of the deported Mexicans have criminal records. 1/3. It's about 1 million of Mexicans. I felt offended when he said, "You are rapists, drug dealers,
bad hombres." Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we are not all like that, but 1/3 is. What do you think about that?
I apologize as an American for whatever that's worth. I can only say that inevitably, when any people are made the targets of bigotry, of exclusion, it's always based on ignorance. You know, the most famous case, of course, is that the Jewish population of Germany was less than 2% of the total population. In other words, it wasn't that people had profound prejudices against Jews, it's that they invented Jews to have prejudices against. And I think the same thing is true about Mexicans in America. Now, there are people who live in the Southwest who feel that their identity is being threatened by a growing Hispanic community. But those aren't the people who chiefly voted for Trump. It's people in Wisconsin and Michigan who have never seen a Mexican, who then are given a label, like Jews, but now it has a different label, of someone you can fear and someone you can blame for your difficulties in life. And that, I think, is the way it works. In other words, it has nothing to do with Mexicans, it has nothing to do with Mexico. It has to do with the perpetual need of the human tribe to have another person, another outsider, to kick, to blame, to make guilty, to make culpable for your own insecurities. I don't know if that's any comfort, but that's the truth.
You're a connoisseur of French culture as well, and the values that it represents, republicanism somehow. So now you also spoke about ethnic diversity, which somehow seems to be in a counterbalance of Republican values, which are egalitarian, legality. To what extent do you consider that we're facing Republican crisis somehow?
In France?
In France and in Mexico, because the values do not seem to be the same. We have pluricultural societies due to migration, and there seems to be a trend as to somehow ratify these nationalist values, whereas the economical, racial, and ethnical variety says another thing, goes counterclockwise.
Well, as I was trying to say in my talk today here at City of Ideas, I'm a pessimist, a terrible pessimist in the sense that I think that back and forth between pluralism and exclusion, between the values of a cosmopolitan society and the needs, the urges of a tribal society are permanent. We can never abolish them. France is a good example. This is a society that's made, in truth, from many different ethnic kinds. You know, you asked me a moment ago about, or someone asked me about Jews in America. Well, the truth is that the Jews of France have often assimilated very successfully. There are more Jewish presidential candidates in France than there are in the United States. But at the same time, the power of bigotry, the power of fear, is overwhelming in France now when it comes to the Islamic community, the Muslim community. And it's clear that there are many lines of conflict. Every generation has to refight the basic battle for the open society. And every generation will fight that battle. And our illusion is to think that it is ever over. Because what history teaches us again and again is that it is never over. And as I was trying to say today, the nice, fatuous, agreeable thing to say is, oh, we can combine the values of pluralism and republicanism with the values of particularism, of identity. I don't believe we can. I believe those values will always be in tension. They'll always be at war. Non-violent war, we hope, but not always. And that every generation has to rededicate itself, to my mind, to the values of liberal pluralism. We can never consider that a settled achievement because it is never settled.
For Channel 1 Los Angeles, I'm with you. I have a question for you.
Please.
How do you see CDI as a platform for reach with technology the next generations? So in your case, how you can transfer the values for the next generation that are so attached to technology, meaning mobile devices, and how you can put those values that only eye-by-eye contact we can do, and a certain amount of people you can see.
Well, as the father of two teenagers, I live with that predicament every day. I don't think I've seen my daughter's face in 5 years. All I see is the top of her head and her thumbs working on her phone. So, that's one of the big questions. Is social media, is the new internet age, the new digital age, is it contributing to rebuilding the values of pluralism, of humanism, or is it diversion from those values? Does it leave us more and more segregated from each other? Is it an illusion of common space rather than a real achievement of common space? It's one of the big questions of our time. I'm an optimist. I think that, I'm a neutralist. I believe that the predicaments of human society are perpetual, and they get re-articulated in every generation, whatever the medium is. When it was radio broadcasts and newsreels, we saw those struggles in radio broadcasts and newsreels. When I was a child, all we talked about was television and the power of television. Now my children never watch television. They never watch television. They spend all of their time on their devices. So we talk about devices, we talk about social media and so on. But are the quarrels different? I don't think they are. The quarrel in America between Trump and anti-Trump is very much like the quarrel between Joseph McCarthy and anti-McCarthy. It's the quarrels of openness and exclusion, of tribalism and pluralism are perpetual.
Leticia, hoy Chicago Tribune en español, en Spanish, 29% of the voters, Latinos, vote for Trump. How can you explain that?
How can you, I'll ask you. You know, you have more knowledge than I do, more expertise. I think that it's a truth about politics, democratic politics, for good or ill, that we vote for stories and we vote for stars. We don't vote for ideas. We don't vote for policies. And I think that was a mistake that Hillary Clinton made. And so I think it's possible that many people looked at Trump but did not listen to him, including Latinos. They looked at him and said, oh, he's a very rich man and he'll knock everything over and that will be good for us. And they didn't hear the messages that he was actually articulating. They chose not to hear them. So I can't understand. You explain to me how a Latino could vote for Trump given what the things that he has said. How could a woman vote for Trump? I mean, forgive, you know, a white woman, so-called, vote for Trump given the things he said. But they do, and they have. So I only have to believe that we never should forget that people vote for their desires, not for the actuality of what they hear. I have to think that. I don't know how else to explain it. Someone else?
Thank you, Alan.
Great. Thank you so much.